If you had, for example, if this pot had one lithop in it, I wouldn't recommend soaking it. I would soak it all around the plant, but maybe not the entire pot. In a pot this small, especially if it's warm outside, it would be totally fine. But in the cooler months, be really careful. Lithops, like I said, like to be crowded. They share rooting hormone with each other, and they're used to living in places where there's not a lot of organic matter in soil. So typically if there's a little bit of organic matter somewhere, there's a whole cluster of these guys, and that's how they grow, and they'll form this huge mound, and they like it. All right, this pot here has sand as the top dressing, which makes it a little trickier watering. So again, I'm going to clean out a little bit of the sand that is washed in between some of these guys. And then I'd like to give you a close-up. Okay. Alrighty. This guy right here is really small and sunken in and shriveled, so he could take a nice little drink, whereas these guys are pretty plump. However, and that's because there's probably multiple different varieties in this pot. It probably seems silly to say probably because it's obvious there are, and there are, but the same variety can look quite different from plant to plant, which is one of the reasons it's extremely hard to identify lithops for sure to a certain species, is because they can look so different. But this guy I'm going to give a bit more attention to. All of these guys, a little bit of a mist won't hurt them because they're all just starting to bloom. This guy bloomed and another one bloomed a bit ago, but this guy, he's not having enough reserves right now to bloom, and it is possible that his root is dead, and that is why he is shriveling up. There was one of these guys that came from the grower looking pretty suspicious a few months ago. So I have kind of soaked the soil down by him, but I didn't drench the rest of these guys. These guys, because they were raised in a greenhouse and they're still pretty well, they're much better right now about knowing what cycle they're in. Sorry, I'm getting all choked up on my words, but they were pretty confused and took about a year to readjust to where they're now on the same cycle as all of my other guys. But so they are in an extra loose mixture because they were overwatered. So I'm just soaking these guys really good. They haven't bloomed for me yet because they've been pretty confused and then struggled for a bit. So I'm hoping they're gonna bloom for us. And I guess this is the last pot here that I have. Oh no, this one here. These guys, you can see this guy's budding out, and hopefully these guys are gonna get ready to bloom as well. And I am going to use my spray bottle again here because there's sand. Get some sand out of the blooms and the tops of a couple of these, and then just mist the top so that the sand doesn't go all over the place. And then, and if you wanted to, like I think I showed with the first one, you could just use your spray bottle and keep spraying and let this just slowly soak down. If that's the best way for you to do it, that is totally fine. I have so many that it would take me forever to water like that. So I prefer to just wet the top and then use a little bit of water, not too much so that the sand doesn't all float up, and give these guys a good soak. Once these guys bloom, I will probably, it really depends on our weather and the temperature, but I'll probably water them once more. And then they'll be, and we're now dripping out the bottom. These guys don't need a super heavy soaking. I wasn't sure if they were going to bloom for me, so I wasn't sure how much energy they were using. If they're blooming, they're using more energy and they're using more water. If they're not blooming, you can get away with watering less. And sometimes after watering, I take the spray bottle again and just wash away any sand that's left so that it's nice and pretty. I find that it's easier to get the sand off with a spray bottle than it is like a makeup brush or a paintbrush. So, but that's just me. A brush can work just fine if they don't need to be watered. All right, these guys, these two are pretty happy, but they are newer arrivals for me, a couple months I think, and so I water them a little bit more this time of year if they're new arrivals. And these came from a very reputable grower, so I can feel pretty confident they are in their right life cycle pattern right now, and I am not damaging them by watering them. Got sand everywhere now. I'm gonna just wash this whole pot off. But the ones on this left side, or well, it doesn't matter, I guess it matters whichever way I turn it, need a little bit more water than the other two because they're a little bit younger. And this one was a double-headed one that I planted together here, and then these two are separate, and the separate ones are a little bit smaller. So I'm giving them this side of the pot a little bit more drink. I'm not gonna water this this one with the faucet because they're not very well rooted yet, and I just don't want to disturb them that much, and the littler pots are a lot easier to flood. Anyways, this video has dragged on so much longer than I imagined. Both of them did. I really hope that is helpful for you guys. I love using clay pots, especially with these guys, because they dry out a lot faster and I can feel a lot safer about drenching them. You can use plastic though. Those are a few methods I use to water. You can obviously use a watering can also, but I do use a spray bottle, just not very rarely do I ever just miss the top of something. Usually I am deep watering, I'm just using a spray bottle to do it with. Anyways, that's all for now. Happy growing, you guys, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. Bye.